Hello, and thank you for listening to this episode of the Moore's October Rants. Today's episode is going to be titled, Arguing Facts Can Be a Waste of Time. Lately, I've been feeling like arguing about facts is one of the most frustrating, time-wasting things you can do. It's not that I haven't tried. Trust me, I've had plenty of those conversations where I came in armed with all the facts, thinking, this is it. This is the one where they'll get it. But you know what? Most of the time, they don't. And it's not even that they can't get it, it's that they won't. They just refuse to let go of their own beliefs, no matter how much evidence you bring to the table. It's baffling, isn't it? You'd think facts would be this neutral, undeniable thing. Like, here's the data, here's the proof, case closed, right? But no, it doesn't work that way anymore. I could be talking to someone about, crime statistics, and I'll show them something like a government report, maybe an article backed by reputable studies. And instead of saying, oh, that's interesting, I didn't know that, they'll hit me with, well, I don't believe that. Like what? You don't believe it? It's not a matter of belief, it's reality. That's when I realized something. For a lot of people, facts aren't the issue. It's not about the data. It's about how they feel about the data. Their emotions are tied up in their perspective. And once emotions enter the picture, logic goes flying out the window. You can try to steer the conversation back to the facts, but it doesn't matter. They'll just keep doubling down. And let me tell you, once someone's in that mode, you might as well be arguing with a brick wall. I've been in situations where I'm calmly explaining something, no hostility, no attitude, and I'll say, look, here's the information. Here's why this narrative doesn't hold up. And instead of engaging, they get defensive. Suddenly, the tone shifts. It's no longer about the topic, it's about them proving they're right. Their voice gets louder, their tone gets sharper, and before you know it, we're spiraling into some ridiculous, yes it is, no it isn't, back and forth. It's exhausting, and it feels so unproductive. I mean, I've been there. I've done the whole, but look at this study, or here's the actual data routine, thinking I could turn things around. But what I've come to realize is that some people aren't in these conversations to learn or exchange ideas. They're not there to grow or even to find common ground. They're there to win. And when someone's goal is just to out-talk you, not to understand you, you're wasting your breath. Here's the thing. It's not my job to educate people who don't want to be educated. If someone really cared about getting to the truth, they could easily do that on their own. We live in an era where information is literally at our fingertips. Everyone has a phone, Wi-Fi is everywhere, and Google exists. If someone wanted to look up accurate stats or unbiased studies, they could do it in 5 seconds. But they don't. Instead, they rely on whatever narrative fits their worldview, and they expect you to do the heavy lifting if you want to prove them wrong. And honestly, I used to feel that obligation. I'd think, well, if I don't explain it, they'll just keep spreading misinformation. But then I realized something important. It's not on me to fix that. If they're not willing to meet me halfway, why should I waste my energy trying to drag them across the finish line? Especially when they don't even care enough to fact-check themselves. What really gets me is how emotional these conversations can get. Like, you're talking about something that should be straightforward. Numbers, stats, facts, but suddenly it feels personal to them. They get defensive or even hostile. And it's like, whoa, where is this coming from? I'm not attacking you, I'm just pointing out what the data says. But once they're in that emotional zone, there's no reasoning with them. It's like they're not even hearing you anymore. They're just gearing up to fight. I remember one time I was talking to someone about housing affordability, and I brought up some pretty clear numbers showing how income hasn't kept up with housing costs, and they just wouldn't accept it. They kept saying stuff like, that's not true where I live, or, well, people just need to work harder. I even pulled up a report from a respected organization, but they brushed it off like it didn't matter. At that point, I realized we weren't even having a discussion anymore. They weren't trying to learn. They were just trying to hold on to their narrative. And that's when it hit me. I don't have to engage with that. I don't have to spend hours trying to convince someone who isn't open to being convinced. It's not my responsibility to make them see the light. especially when they're not even looking for it. And if the conversation is just turning into a shouting match or a never-ending loop, it's better to walk away. That's why I've started setting boundaries, especially online. If I see someone being combative or dismissive, I'll mute them, block them, or just stop replying. Life's too short to waste on arguments that don't go anywhere. And you know what? It's liberating. You don't have to win every argument. You don't even have to have every argument. So now, before I even engage, I ask myself, is this worth it? Is this person actually open to a real conversation, or are they just here to argue? If it's the latter, I don't bother, because at the end of the day, no amount of facts will change someone's mind if they're not willing to listen. And honestly, I've got better things to do than yell at a brick wall. Anyways, thank you for listening to this episode of the Moors October Rants. Signing out. Have a good one, guys. Goodbye.